My office is very bare right now, and it's a very sad day.
I was gonna say JHawk's dungeon is the most fancy out
Decorated
of all of our
office right
sets
now.
at this
Yeah.
point.
It is
Yep.
right now, yeah.
It's unfortunate, Butters. It is.
Well,
You had all that stuff behind you. Look good. Gave you
it's
credibility.
give it some time. Once I get moved and I get the new place and I get to set it up how I want it to be permanently, it'll be really nice. We'll have the Mick Foley belt up and it's gonna look really, really nice. So this is just
Nice.
temporary issue, along with if you could notice my voice sounds like shit. I have some type of sinus, something, I don't know. Thought it was strep, isn't strep. Something's going on in my throat. It's sore. It hurts to
It's going around.
swallow.
Kyle's the same way. He was all banged up. He said the night shift is we're hoping that the night shift gets off without a hitch tomorrow because he's not feeling good either.
Yeah, I've been sleeping like a lot, like trying to sometimes I'm hungry, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
Today I was like getting real nauseous before I finally ate some dinner, and I ate like maybe 6 or 7 bites and was like, all right, I'm full. Like I just didn't just couldn't do anything, so I don't know what's going on.
I've been taking apple cider vinegar pills every day. It curbs all my cravings for chocolate and whatnot. So I don't really want like dessert as often as I used to, which is
Mm.
good, I guess. Helps me get in my clothes. So anyway, so I went to the ETU show yesterday,
Yeah, tell us
and
about it, man.
ETU was I mean they I will say this, they had 9 matches, and I would say it was probably 2 matches too long. Like I think you can't I think on a Sunday night it started at 4. It should have ended tidy around like 10 to 7. That's when the show should have ended. But it ended like 7:40. And that's a long show, almost 4 hours long, and there was a couple of matches that the first match and like somewhere in the middle that you could probably have done without, and they were like more Young Lions type matches. But the Bishop Santana match was amazing. And in case anybody, if you don't want it spoiled, turn it off now. But Bishop lost, which was very sad. But that it was Santana's the greatest performer. Even on the Indies, he brings so many people with him, and so everyone gets so amped up. And they had a tag team gauntlet match. The main event was the Killionaires, so PB and Jay Bougie versus the Bang Bros and LAX, or whatever they're called, Latinos Most Wanted, right?
Hmm.
That was a crazy. I mean, the four of them, even when the Killionaires were not in the ring, those four guys went absolutely. There were spots that you're going to be like, that's amazing. I mean, and we were sitting in the drop zone basically, and every time someone dove, and you'll see it when we watch it, they were diving onto us, and Harper had to keep scrambling. And I said to Harper during the show, I'm like, Harper, we catch dives in this family. We don't bail out. We do not bail out on dives. We catch them in this family. We protect the workers.
You eat
But
that concussion.
right,
You eat that ring guardrail to the face.
yeah, they don't have guardrails. So
Oh, that's
I
right.
said just catch them. And then Big Sam came down to like mess with Bishop, and he threw a chair at Bishop. It went off Bishop's face and right into Harper's lap, basically. And she didn't even flinch. And these guys come running over, and they're like, "Is she okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, you'd know if she wasn't okay. She's a soldier. She doesn't. She's been in between chairs before.
Now
She
she
doesn't
needs it
care."
signed by both of them, and then she can put it up on her wall in her room.
Oh, wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, I think if it did some damage, if she was like, like grabbing at her leg or something, we get some signatures out of that. But, um, hmm.
Oh shit, you could have got signatures anyway. The wrestlers love little kids like that. So
Well, all in all, I think it was a great show for a Sunday night. I think their next show is in December, and they're doing a 5-on-5, the expected versus the Team ETU, and the expected Zakuro Kwan and Austin Luke, Gabe Sky, Alec Price, and Matt Mako. So they love them. Those guys are that faction's like the biggest faction on the card, and they are featured all the way through the whole first half of the card. And then the Alec Price Kenny Broadway match was really good also. Alec Price looks great, by the way. Have you like taken a good look at him lately? He's put on mass. He has new trunks. He wore brand new boots last night. If I haven't seen him in these white and black boots. Guy's putting it all together. I think it is somebody's got to give him a look. Like even if AEW puts him on Ring of Honor for a bit, someone's got to give him a look. It would be amazing. And then the other funny thing that you would like, Butters, as a someone who sets, as a promoter type of deal, they told them don't do spots on the ramp. And the very first match, The guy does the dive onto the ramp, and Struggles and Andrew, they put their hands up over their head. They're so, it's not their ramp. So they were so worried they were gonna bust their ramp. So, but yeah, that's some indie growing pains right there. Jayhawk, do you ever tell them when you get in the ring, guys, you can't do this spot, and they do it anyway?
Oh
And then
yeah, that's
it's so
annoying as fuck.
stupid. It's so
I don't.
stupid.
I don't know how many times I've had to tell guys like grab the fucking wooden chairs in the venue. Don't use the wooden chairs. You got steel chairs under the fucking ring. Do not use the wooden chairs.
Don't break the wedding chairs. Break the chairs under the ring. Uh,
The one time they're like getting stuff under the ring is fucking stupid. It's the goddamn building chairs. Like no, fuck.
Stay off the building chairs. God damn it.
Nine
Uh,
matches is a lot. I'm
it
gonna
was a
stick with
lot.
six matches on my cards.
Yeah, I
Six, a
think that's
small
fair.
little intermission, go home, be done.
Yeah,
Be
that
able to be
works.
done in like 2 hours.
Yeah, 2.5 hours. That's enough.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a enough of a show as far as the show goes. I think you get enough out of it. I think they were trying to get just they had so many guys on the roster. They also had a tag team gauntlet, so it went on for that match actually made up for time, but the guys in the beginning went over, I think. So you could just feel the air come out of the room a little bit when the first match goes a little bit too long. But yeah, what are you gonna do? It was a great night. It was a really fun show. Bishop took some pictures with Harper and her friend. And yeah, I love ETU. I could go there anytime. It's my local promotion. So yeah, that was my weekend. Nothing too exciting from last week. Just my mom being in and everything else. But otherwise, we were rocking and rolling at the show. And now, who knows? Thursday is the day of rest. Then this show drops on Yom Kippur, so I'll be home fasting. So if anybody wants to talk about it, you can talk about the episode.
So Wednesday, Video Wire number 7 drops for everybody not on the Patreon. It's on the Patreon right now. That'll be Mikey Montgomery defending the championship against BK Westbrook. So that match rocked. So that'll be available to everybody Wednesday at noon Eastern time. And then this Saturday, October 4th, it's going to be Mikey Montgomery against Trey Lamar, champion versus champion. No titles on the line, but champion versus champion at Neo Pro Wrestling. Trey is the Great Lakes champion, similar style belt as the IW Guide, super indie style belt. So that should be a really good match. Also on the card, Big Al taking on Jocelyn for the Neo Pro Women's title in a street fight. It is a no DQ show, and there's lots of women's matches. It's the women's centric show this time. There will also be a pre-show match. What?
I lost my internet for a second. You guys still hear me?
Yep,
Yep,
I hear you.
good.
That was weird.
What's a women's centric show? There's a lot of women's matches, mixed tag matches. Also on the pre-show, Nothing Tougher Jeff Steele will wrestle a match. And as the promo video that you all have seen, if you watch the video wire, Sammy tells him, if you don't win, I don't ever want to see you again. So
It's a women centric show. So is it like, do we call it a perv show? It's pretty much a perv show.
I mean, you can. I mean, it's at a strip club to begin with. So,
There you go.
I mean, and then you have a bunch of women's matches. I mean, it
Yeah,
is what
that
it
works.
is.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but there's also lots of other good stuff on there. So
Nice.
I'm excited for it.
What else we got? Shout outs?
Shout outs. Let's shout out to Bagel Monger. Let's shout out to Zach. And let's shout out to Patty.
Hey, Patty.
Hey, Patty. All love Patty.
Yep.
Oh,
What can I
boy.
use today?
Well, I guess what's on this weekend?
By the way, Butters, Zach, our conversations regarding Alien Earth, I just finished that and I really enjoyed it. I thought it picked up the last 2 episodes. It did take a little while to get there, but it's
They're doing
definitely
some weird. They did some weird stuff with it. I feel like they were told they were going to get 2 seasons or like a second season to kind of finish up.
yeah.
So we'll see what happens because they definitely left it pretty wide open for something else. But I really enjoyed what they did with it. I liked the throwback episode to
Yeah.
what happened to the ship. That was
Mhm.
like getting a free alien movie out of it,
Mm-hmm.
which was dope. Everybody loves that fucking Oculus eyeball. They think that thing is the coolest fucking thing. Like, and that's the new big. That was the big alien that everybody liked on the show.
Yeah,
They love
yeah.
that eyeball.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
I was a little bit disappointed that I turned it on. I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. That's where we're stopping?
Yeah, like when the music started playing, I'm like, "So that's it? No, that's not a good finale. What are we doing?"
Yeah. And then I
But
immediately switched to Marvel Zombies, by the way, and I'm super satisfied with that also. I watched all 4 episodes. It was
I
awesome.
haven't watched it yet because they don't have any of the X-Men in it, do they?
No. No,
So there's no point in me watching it. I mean,
it's
what's the
all
point
cast
of
from yeah, it's all cast from the Marvel movies.
what's the point of doing all that if you're not going to include the X-Men like Wolverine and Deadpool and all them? There's no point for me to
That's
watch it.
and they should have used them, and there I'm sure there were plenty of spots there for them, but they used all the voices from the current Marvel movies.
Yeah.
So
I might check it out. There's not a lot on right now, so I've just been
yeah.
watching uh Tulsa King's back on. So I watch like the
I gotta do Twisted Metal. I gotta jump back into
should
Twisted
you
Metal.
should
Yeah.
hurry up and get that
Yeah.
watched.
And I gotta do Peacemaker. I've been saving it till the very end. So
Peacemaker's been stellar. That's
Yeah.
been really good.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna hit that soon. I've been waiting to kind of savor every episode so I don't have to wait around every week.
Yeah, my oldest
Do
daughter
not watch
actually
it with
got
your
my wife
daughter,
and
by the way, especially the first episode. Do not watch it with your daughter.
She won't watch any of that stuff. She's okay with that.
yeah, my oldest daughter actually had Jamie convinced to watch Peacemaker. That's going to probably be next in our house.
First season first? Did they watch the first season yet?
No, in this count, nobody watched the first Negan. My oldest daughter had watched both Negan of it. It's like you need to watch the show. No.
Yeah, don't watch with the boy.
No,
Don't let the boy watch.
I am very well aware of the content in Peacemaker.
Okay.
At least with the first episode of the second season, it's very questionable, but I think you might be able to get away with. Well, no. It's very questionable across the board in every season. I mean, there's some really good stuff that I think you would like, but it's better for him to just wait, and then when he's a teenager, he can watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah, the clip I have seen, he can wait until he can at least 13, at least.
Yeah,
That's
he
fair.
probably
That's fair.
could. Yeah, 13's okay. All right, now we can talk about what's on.
Okay, what's on?
What's on this weekend?
All right, over on Triller TV, this coming Friday night, October 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, it will be Wrestling Revolver presenting Tales from the Ring from Dayton, Ohio, featuring the wedding of Killer Goat Myron Reed and Killer Kelly. Matches already announced for the show. Remix champion AJ Francis defending against BDE. Revolver World Tag Team Champions Latino's Most Wanted defending against the former champs Stroll and Dreadnought, accompanied by Gia Miller. Trick or Treat Deathmatch, Alex Colon versus Judge Joe Dredd.
Alex Colon still doing it, huh? Go figure.
And a three-way match, Ake Austin, Gringo Loco, and Alan Angel. Also on the card will be Alpha Gig, Jay Chris, Jessica Havoc, Kimmy Callahan, Damian Chamber, Kayla Cackety, Tire Dye, Crash Jackson, Joe Alonso, Big Pound, Junie Underwood, and more. And Shotzi Blackheart is on the poster. She is going to be in the building as well, so expect her to have a match, most likely. And that should be a fun show. That's Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Then on the IWTV side, by the way, there was Jerry was at the show the other night, so we got a chance to see Jerry from IWTV. So we are talking New Texas Pro Wrestling Sunday, October 5th at I think it's 5 p.m. Texas time, so that would be 4 p.m. 3 p.m. Eastern. I mean, 7 p.m. Eastern.
7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central.
Right, and that is New Texas Pro presents We Know Ball, and that is live from the Empire Control Room in Austin, Texas. Casey Black Rose versus Jesse Funaki, LJ Cleary versus Vert Vixen, Maya World versus Jasmine Allure. Maya World, by the way, she was on the ETU card. She's terrific. That's the first time I ever saw her. A street fight, Hit versus Killa Cash, Rachel Rose versus Devin Carter, Daniel Ryan versus IW Guide friend Shimbashi, Dmitry Alexandrov and Ollie Summers versus Brick Savage and JJ Blake, Brian Keith versus Izzy James, and the New Texas Pro Championship, Carter Black, the champion, versus the one called Manders. And that is all on Sunday night on the Independent Wrestling Television Network.
And I'm loving the poster for that, too. Doors open at 4, tailgate at 5.
Yeah.
And then the show at 6.
See that.
I mean, usually you tailgate before the doors open, so that caught my attention a little bit. But
yeah.
Interviewing.
All right. This week we have the editor-in-chief of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. We have Kevin McElvaney with us. What's going on, man?
Hey, yeah, just been keeping busy. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me on.
We
Oh,
appreciate you saying yes to this mess of a show, and we're
Yeah, I know
very
you wanted to go dark for the rest of the year after dropping the 500, but
no. Now you gotta face it. Now you gotta face it and talk through it with everybody that wants to talk through it.
Look, the select few that I've said yes to, and this is one of them. So
Well, we'll be
Yeah,
I
respectful.
promise it's we have I don't think we have anything to complain about. Big thing that for this year, Mikey Montgomery was listed in it again this year, and the IW Guide title, which is our podcast title, was listed in his mention, which was the thing I wanted the most this year. I worked really hard to make that title mean something, and hoping that it would get mentioned when he was mentioned as champion. And it did, and it made my day. And then I got sick, and I think I paid a lot for the sickness that I have right now. I'm paying a lot for that being a thing. So
some kind of weird inverse karma or something like
That's
that.
I
what
feel
it
like
is.
it is. I feel like
It
I used all my
definitely
karma
is.
points, and now I had to like deal with the sickness from it. So
That's right.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
They said you're going to be in the PWI 500, and then you're going to shit your pants, and that's the end of it. That's how that ended.
I
fun
mean,
part is-
look, there's been a lot of wrestlers ranked all over the years and mentioned, so I'm sure it's happened a few other times.
yeah.
So-
The funny part was, like 3 months ago, he's like, the 500 come out. I hope they mention the title. And he's like, JHawk, you're close to Kristen. You tell Kristen to get that title mentioned. I'm not gonna freaking tell Kristen.
oh,
Hey,
I even tried to like DM people and be like, hey, like when you go to mention, because I know that Mikey's gonna make it on there. I was like, you just got to make sure you mention that he's the champion. I was like that if they do their due diligence, it'll be mentioned. And when I got the little blurb and I saw it, I'd woken up and that was the first thing I saw, and I was like, that was a really great way to wake up that day.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's when we put the bios together, we try to have a pretty good reflection of each wrestler's year, and that includes the highlights. And of course, that's one of his big highlights for the year. And then and honestly, to mention like different things too, because okay, yes, a lot of people have competed for GCW, and that gets mentioned. But if people are doing different things, that like, oh, not everybody on the list did this, so like let's draw attention to it.
Right.
So that's a good point. So I need to ask you some questions. I've been thinking about this a while. I've been reading and looking at this since the early '90s. And I think this has been around since what, like '91,
Yep.
maybe 35 years, something like that.
This is the
PWI.
35th edition. Yeah.
So I think in a lot of my wrestling fandom throughout my career, and JHawk and I are about the same age. We've been doing this for a long time. So for you, when did you get started in this, and how did you end up? And I'm sure other places have asked you, but how did you end up where you are as this? And we asked Kristen the same. How did you end up with PWI and doing this event, so to speak? Because it is an event at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up reading the magazines just like a lot of other people did. PWI, Inside Wrestling, The Wrestler, Sports Review Wrestling, the WWF and WCW magazines, just everything, the Napolitano magazines. Anything that was on the shelf that I could convince my mom to buy me, I would grab. And then what happened was I actually had intended to try to intern with PWI when I was in college, because I saw it was headquartered pretty close by where I was going to school. And then I forget exactly what happened, but it didn't pan out. But then I saw after I graduated, they put an ad out, a friend sent it to me for a proofreader, and it said, bonus if you're familiar with wrestling. So by that point, I didn't have a lot of published writing. I don't think I'd started. WrestleZone was another one of my early gigs. I don't know if I'd started there yet. So a lot of stuff was probably self-published at this point. But I send in my clips and what existed of my resume at that point to Stu Sachs, and he saw it and he said, "This position has actually already been filled. It was still sitting on Craigslist for some reason, but we'd be happy to keep you in mind for freelance work." So fast forward a few months, I follow up about that, and I start to get some assignments. It started out, and at that point, most of them were combined issues of Inside Wrestling and The Wrestler. So I started out primarily writing for those, and then eventually, after I kind of proved myself there, and Harry Burkett was editor-in-chief at the time. Stu Sachs was publisher. Harry really went to bat for me, saw something in me, so I have to thank him. He's still at the magazine as a writer now, but he was there many years, and eventually, okay, let's give Kevin some PWI assignments. I was given some PWI 500 entries to write probably after a couple of years. But actually being on the committee, I think the first year was 2012. So it was whatever the year with the Miz was, it was the year after that. Because I remember everyone was still talking about like, oh boy, like what are we going to do this year? Like, let's, because the response to that was all over the place. It was like, how this? And there was a case for him.
I can explain that a little bit when you're done, but go ahead.
Well, again, I wasn't on the committee that year, but essentially he was in the main event, and he had, when you looked at things like win-loss record and length of title reign and stuff like that, when you broke it down, he had the strongest case being that he was the top guy in WWE that year by a few different metrics. So that was the idea anyway. Whether or not I'd have to go through and see how accurate that was. Just because someone was number one or number two or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that you look back on it in a few years and like, no, did we make the right call there? That's always up for discussion. So, but yeah, 2012 ish, I started on the committee. And the first year I went, it was still in person. So like we had people, I lived pretty close by, but a lot of other people were like driving from out of state and such and meeting at the headquarters in Bluebell. And we met all day, and we took a break and went and got some pizza in the middle of it. I remember Dan Murphy like bought lunch, and I was like, oh my God, Dan Murphy bought me lunch. That's a big, like I was a little because I've been reading his stuff for years. And then, fast forward a bunch of years. I mean, I was doing all sorts of different jobs in digital marketing and content marketing and all this stuff, still contributing to PWI occasionally, but kept in touch with Stu Sachs. Crucially, used Stu Sachs as a professional reference a few times because I think doing that kind of kept him posted on like what I was doing, the kinds of jobs I was working. And then also he would follow up and like, oh, how's that job going? Like, did you get, yeah, I got it. And oh, how's it going? Oh, it's all right. And then it happened to be that I was at a job that I really just was not for me. And Stu kind of like calls me, he steps out of his office one day, calls me on his cell phone. He always called from his desk phone. And he kind of let me in on the fact that he was going to be retiring. And he asked if I would like consider taking over for him. And I was just like floored. And I said, yeah, of course, I would definitely consider that. So fast forward a couple of months, and I had to come in and I had to still do an interview with the parent company and all that stuff. And they had to make sure that I was a good candidate to take over the position. But, obviously having Stu's endorsement went a really long way. Mm-hmm. So,
sure.
But I mean, a lot of years in the making. And then 2020, I started, I think it was March 2nd. So it was right before the pandemic started. So it was
interesting year to start. Yeah.
Time to start a new job of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of my training for the editorial work was done like over Zoom and over the phone and over like things like that. So it was just a wild time.
And so you did a lot of other jobs, not just in that area.
Yeah.
Were you a classic wrestling fan growing up, or was this something that as you started to get older and evolve into, or how did it work for you to get into that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. This is something little bit of it isn't exactly a secret. I've admitted it, but I actually missed a lot of the Attitude Era while it was happening. Like I saw it was in the air. Everybody was watching it. So I still ended up at a couple like, oh, there's a big show on tonight. Come over. We'll get pizza, blah, blah, blah. So I kept up loosely with it and I was watching it a little bit, but it's funny because I was watching religiously as a kid. So in the early 90s, and that's when I was reading all the magazines and watching, like, I still have a huge affinity for Bill Watts here at WCW. I don't even care.
Sure.
How can you not? Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once I started watching, I started with WWF, and then someone clued me into WCW, went to the local video store, rented every single tape that was there, WWF and whatever WCW tapes they had, multiple times. And then, picking up the wrestling magazines and like, oh, there's all this other wrestling. And, like, oh, there's wrestling in Georgia, and there's wrestling in Texas, and there's wrestling in California. And it was, the territory system was kind of, it was dying out by that point. Some would say it was already dead by then, but there were vestiges of it.
Sure.
And so I was learning about people who would show up on television later by reading about them in the magazines. So, kind of got interested in other things for a few years when I was a teenager, but kind of by the end of high school, I'd gotten full bore back into it again. and into it like to different levels, because then I had the internet that I could go online, like, oh, I can like just download a match from Japan in my college dorm in a few minutes and watch that, and I can check out independent wrestling. And being growing up in Philadelphia, we had, and again, ECW, when it was on, I saw it again once or twice. This was stuff I had to catch up on later on, like when I got back in.
Yeah.
But by the time I was back into it, it's like, oh yeah, early Ring of Honor and CZW and Chikara and all this stuff, and it was just all in the air, and a lot of it was airing on the same station that carried ECW in Philadelphia back in the day, which was Channel 48 UHF. And it was just a whole different thing at that point. And went online, was posting on internet forums, downloading stuff that I had missed, borrowing DVDs from people to catch up on other stuff I'd missed, just kind of doing it whatever way I can, maybe torrenting a few things. But that's what you got to do. So I mean, there was like a hiatus of, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years somewhere in there, but more or less my whole life since I was a kid, and just, devouring it.
So let's get into the meat of this a little bit. So before we get to and I know JHawk and Butters have some great questions regarding the list itself and how you guys come to it, but let's talk a little bit about, since you've seen evolution of the industry as far as television wrestling and indie wrestling. So we are the Indie Wrestling Guide. So let's talk a little bit about what you see as far as the indie wrestling goes. How has it changed as far as how you guys view them, indie wrestlers, for this list in the last, let's say, 15 years? So let's say from 2010 on, changing, or even maybe a little bit later, let's say 2015 on, as indie wrestling started to get hot again, like 2019, I still think was probably the hottest year for indie wrestling in a very long time, just before AEW started. How has indie wrestling changed as far as how you view these guys for the list, and how you guys value or even see the industry as far as the indie side goes?
So when I was on the committee but didn't really have the sway other than just arguing my case like anybody else, certainly there were a lot of independent wrestlers on the list. But for the most part, you didn't see so many of them like in the top 100. And I think part of the reason for that is, obviously you have the massive just industry dominance of WWE. And, around that time, 2015 and on, New Japan was starting to get hot. And I mean, TNA was, depending what year, like really some real variation there as far as how influential it was or not, and Ring of Honor. But we were trying to keep a close eye on a lot of these wrestlers who maybe weren't ranking as high, because it's like, well, those wrestlers that were in that position a few years ago, now they're, then they were in, say, Ring of Honor or PWG, and then all of a sudden, they're on television every week. I mean, you look at someone like a John Moxley, who was his first however many years on the list, he was in like the 300s, the 400, and then just all of a sudden he's in the top 100 when he's with WWE. So we realized that we had to pay closer attention to that, because some new wrestlers, I think, especially in the wake of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and their success on television, you saw people who wouldn't necessarily have gotten a fair shake in prior years getting that fair shake. Then, of course, like you said, everything leading up to that 2019 red hot period, and prior to the launch of AEW and then early AEW as well. By that time, when I'm starting to have a little more sway, it's like, well, we have to kind of treat this more seriously than we have in the past. And part of that is the visibility of it, because there were these shows years before you would see them. Eventually, they would come out on DVD. I mean, PWG is set up like that for a reason. But you had all these streaming services that were popping up. And, you had IWTV when it was Powerbomb TV. You had
Flow Slam.
Yeah, Flow Slam. You had the WWN one. You had High Spots, of course, and like the early version of like the Demand Progress, which like randomly had a bunch of US indies on it. Like it was very, very crude compared to what it is now in terms of like the interface and the devices you could watch it on. And now it's so much easier. But that really does increase the visibility of this, and it puts wrestlers on the radar of those television promotions. And now, I mean, you see someone catches fire and they're scooped up really pretty quick,
Yeah.
So I think we don't necessarily look at being on IWTV as the same as being on television, but I think the higher level promotions on there with more buzz, with more visibility, with good social media traction, how can you not look at the Action Wrestling shirt on, and how can you not look at the champion of Action Wrestling, which is so influential now that collaborations with Ring of Honor and AEW. How can you not look at their champion as not being a significant wrestler in the international landscape? I mean, especially when they're defending internationally, when all their matches are being streamed, they're facing these high level opponents. So it has evolved, but I think essentially, I mean, taking it more seriously.
But it's not going to evolve. Well, this is a silly question then, or maybe it's just me thinking out loud.
Sure.
Does it mean one day we may see an indie wrestler as the number one guy on the PWI 500? I mean, is it still that way off because they're just not on, regular television? I mean, is that the number one, I guess qualifier, so to speak?
Well, it needs to be. There's different ways this happens, and we have kind of said in our meetings when we've talked about this, like a year where, say, like someone from New Japan is the number one wrestler, that which is not an indie by any stretch, but it's also not WWE. And I mean, now it's not AEW. It doesn't have the international reach that those promotions do. So it's a little bit harder for someone even at that level to be number one. They have to have not only this incredible transformative year where they just are on the tips of everyone's tongue, but they have to do that in a year where there isn't like a clear consensus number one from one of those other promotions. So I think that's what would have to happen. Now, if you had something where, I think the way it is now, a lot of people have these long dominant title reigns on television, and that does make them kind of the top stars within the industry. And if along with that, they're defending their titles a whole bunch, they're putting on good quality matches, they have good quality opponents, that is going to lend the advantage to these top promotions. But yeah, I think it's at least theoretically possible. I think honestly, a place we might look for that to happen. It's happened in the past with our women's ranking. We had cheerleader Melissa when she was in Shimmer. Was number one. I don't know that it'll happen again now because it's on the women's ranking, but where I could see it happening potentially is the tag team list, because tag team wrestling is so sporadically promoted by not just WWE and AEW, and you could argue TNA isn't as consistent with it. There's been a lot of makeshift tag teams in New Japan, and some of them break up before we can even rank them in the list, that kind of stuff. So I think, you might actually have a better case for seeing that, where you have a tag team on the independent circuit being number one on the tag team list.
Violence is forever.
and
they've gotten close. They've been in the top 10. Yeah. So
and how much does or how much thought has gone into maybe even doing a ranking of, let's say, independent promotions themselves, like saying, let's talk about which promotion is bringing the most value, on the indies this year, so to speak, right? Like, does that ever cross anybody's minds, or even a list to like talk about, like, say, which ones are the hottest? It doesn't mean because GCW runs, 90 shows a year, doesn't mean that it's the hottest promotion. You could say, hey, DPW was a hot promotion this year because they had X amount of what we thought were 5-star matches or 4.5-star matches. Does that ever come across like, hey, maybe we should talk about what companies are? Or they're just too many to do?
There are a lot. I think, you see the closest you'll see to that is probably the rankings of the wrestlers, where the promotion's names keep popping up. But I honestly, that just politically, that seems like a nightmare to me, because as outspoken as fans can be and some wrestlers can be, promoters are sensitive. They're very, if they perceive that you're disrespecting their product or like promoting someone else, like, what about my show? I got 600 people out last month. Like, okay, it's not personal. This is just what we chose to cover in this particular case. But thank you for telling us that you got 6, because we don't always know. So
yeah, that makes sense.
You have to figure out if it's true, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, all right, Butters, JHawk, you guys want to roll? I'll come back. I don't want to take up all the beginning. So go ahead.
Okay, well, I told you I kind of knew about the mid number one thing from 2011. I was actually at Cauliflower Alley Club talking to Dan Murphy about that in real time, and he was telling me even then about how, just looking at it, number one pretty much had to be the mid. He had the longest title reign in WWE at that point. He got that WrestleMania main event win over John Cena. He just felt like that there was no other number one. based on the climate at the time. So I actually got that whole thing in real time. It basically just the Ague spelled it out. So
Good for the
no,
Miz.
that's great. Thank you for that recall, because I couldn't remember all of the. Again, I wasn't on it that year, but I remember hearing the next year. So I think it was Brady Hicks brought in like printouts with information about the Miz's year, and like, this is what he did versus this is what Cena did versus what whoever else did, and made a really strong case for him.
Imagine that meeting. Yeah. I
Yeah.
would like to have been in there.
Right. Well, apparently also part of it was Edge was a pretty strong case for number one, and then he retired before the evaluation period ended.
yeah,
We all
that
remember
was that year.
So
Yeah. So I want to go over the criteria real quick here, because one of the things I've seen with all the people arguing about the ranking, and everybody was always under that impression that people were paying for their spots in the 500. And I know from speaking with Dan Murphy that was never the case. Nobody ever paid for their spot. But here's what the criteria is as of now. So in-ring achievement, so wins, losses, championship, tournaments won. Influence, so visibility, prestige, which actually kind of brought up, that's why a WWE, AEW usually up at the top of the list. Technical ability, so quality of matches, in-ring storytelling. Competition, so against most varied, highest quality opponent. And the big one is activity. A minimum of 10 singles matches total, or 6 single matches in 6 different months. That one caused a lot of controversy, but somebody photoshopped Jelly Roll at number 8, and people at number 38, people thought it was legit, and I was just laughing. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that
I
was.
posted on my Twitter that anyone who fell for that screenshot was not allowed to criticize the list this year. That's just, if you don't have the reading comp, because if you the Photoshop, Justin Wang did that. The Photoshop work is pretty good, but like, if you read it, he left some tells in there. First of all, he wrote it in full sentence format, which we don't. We do the fact about the wrestler, ... another fact, ... Like, that's the format we use on all of our lists. And he wrote just in full sentences, very informal tone, like, honestly, we didn't even watch his match at SummerSlam. But
once I saw that was the big tell for me, was like, yeah, we didn't even watch this match. I'm just like, okay, I can ignore this. This isn't something that wastes my time with.
The best part was, like, I didn't even look at that. I looked at the ranking. Went, his match wasn't even until after the evaluation period. Come on.
And honestly, I didn't even remember that part when I first saw it. I was just like, oh, he only had one match and it was a tag match, but it wasn't during the period. And we used to count tag matches toward the activity requirement, but then after introducing the tag team list, we got more strict with that, because the idea was, like, we would be ranking like the Young Bucks, and they would take up 2 spots, and they would each have 1 singles match during the year. Like, what is the point of taking that spot from someone else who's a singles wrestler the entire year? Because they're not singles stars; they are a tag team act.
Right.
Like, if we didn't have that list, it's a different story. But since we do, it's like, but even then, the minimum activity requirement. And obviously, if you wrestle a whole lot more than that, that works in your favor. But it used to be double what it is now. It used to be you had to have 1 match a month instead of 1 match every other month, or 20 matches total.
You don't think 6 is a little low? Like 12 is a little low for the whole year? Like, that seems to me like, that's, if you're only
10, you really you really don't have to do much at all. Like, it's
so that seems, because then you run into those issues with talent who are upset they weren't on the list at all, who have covered that amount, even wrestled maybe 60 matches in the year. Sure. And then they're like, well, how does this person, how do you guys deal with that then? And you say to yourselves, oh man, like, now we got something here,
Well, so it's not just activity. Activity. Right. So it's most important only in that it's a clear disqualification if you don't meet the requirement. Okay. So like we don't make exceptions. We didn't for Roman Reigns. We didn't for John Cena. I'm trying to think who else this year. A bunch of guys: Bobby Lashley, Logan Paul, Gran Guerrero, champion of CMLL 2 years in a row, did not qualify.
Makes sense. So I'm glad that you stick to it, though, and don't say, like, then you don't have to open yourself up to holes where this guy, you hear that stuff, I'm sure.
But let's be like, Roman Reigns had 3 singles matches, and there were people upset that he wasn't on the list, and he had a few more tag matches, but he also lost about half of his match. So I think people's perspective on what this list is, it's not who gets the most time on your television set every week. It's not who does the best promos. It's not even who's the biggest star. It's who achieved the most as a pro wrestler in these 5 categories throughout the year. Right.
Yeah, and Al Casco actually has a great article in the issue about the match requirement. It'll get too high. or too high with the environment being what it is now. A really good read. I recommend everybody picking up the issue.
I mean, that's definitely
and
interesting,
reading
especially with like how they're only doing like 5-match PLEs now,
Yep.
and WWE's really changed it. So I feel like eventually it's going to come to the point where, like, do you feel like you're eventually going to have to rank WWE differently and WWE talent differently because they're
You
treated
don't
so
feel a little
differently?
unfair, though? Like to give them like, oh, the bar's lower for you, the highest paid wrestlers at the highest level, and well, not always the highest paid anymore.
Or you make it harder for them. You say it's harder for you. You're on TV, so you're always out there. So it doesn't matter whether you're in this magazine or not. Roman Reigns is always going to be on TV, right? But the guy who wrestled, the guy who's been on TV every week and loses every week should still be on the list because he's giving you 70 matches in the year.
Well, loses every week is actually an important. So we don't have a strict cutoff with this, but we have guys this year who usually rank. The Miz is one of them. Finn Balor's another one of them. No singles matches all year. They didn't win one singles match, and we had other guys who won like a match or two, and it's like Kofi Kingston. Yeah, Kofi Kingston. Like everyone loves Kofi Kingston, but like, how important is it to squeeze Kofi on the list when he was something like 2-7 in singles matches? He's going to be on the tag list in a prominent position because he had a good run with the tag title.
Yeah.
Like, what good is it to claim that he's a top singles star who won 2 matches? It feels disingenuous. It leaves less room for not just independent wrestlers, but international wrestlers from major promotions who, maybe they weren't, main eventing, but maybe they went like 15 and 14 or something like that. That is, per the criteria on our list, that's more impressive just for this list. It's not
makes sense.
Roman Reigns, no one's going to argue that he's not one of the biggest stars in the industry, but that's not what this is.
Right. I'm glad you made that distinction because I think it wasn't like this when I was a kid when we were reading. I think now with the internet and with how much there are so many clout chasers and everything else, I think people
on the internet.
You're not. It's such a great place most of the time, but full of smart people and all sorts of good things.
I found an issue of the PWI 500 from like 99, and JT Lightning was listed in it. And the last blurb about him was that he was a native of Atlanta. And I sent it to our friend Pedro, and Pedro's like, he never lived in Atlanta. He's like, what is that? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I just thought it was interesting that he was in there back in the 90s. And I was like, so I sent it to you because, like, he's, the father of Cleveland wrestling. And I thought it was really interesting. They said that he was a native of Atlanta. So I don't know. Like,
stuff comes from.
Yeah. So like,
I just remember
just weird tidbits that make no sense from stuff back then because the internet, was around, but it wasn't as widely used. Like,
but like
hearsay.
14-year-old Josh I had every cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the PWI on my wall. And I remember in the early 90s when it first came out, it meant the world to me. Like, who are the guys who were the top 10, the top 20? But I don't think I ever heard one person complain as much as people do now about the list. So that's why I appreciate the fact that you can hold people from television on a different. You can say, look, you weren't in this, you didn't meet these criteria, or you weren't there, so you're not going to be on this, regardless of how much television time you get. You're not. It doesn't mean you're you have to be on this list every year, which I like. I like that Roman Reigns does not have to be. We're not putting him in the top 5 every year, even though people say, well, he's a top 5 wrestler. Well, he's not this year.
Right.
So
and he's top 5 in other metric, whatever. But like, that's not. We've talked, and we're going to continue to look at it like as the industry evolves, but I think you're still going to have guys from Japan and Mexico who are wrestling 200 matches.
Yeah.
So how is it? And they're not all singles matches, but even the singles matches, Japan, sometimes it'd be like 50. And it's like, okay, yeah. Like, in the same way we're critical, okay, maybe a guy from New Japan only had 5 or 6 title defenses, but he wrestled this many matches. So it's like, you can't have it. I don't know. It's just, I think you need to consider what the standard is for where it is. And it's funny because Al Castle wrote that for the magazine, and then we talked about it later, and I said, maybe next year let's revisit this, and I think we will talk about it. I doubt it's going to change because he said, in a way, how much lower can you go than 6 matches?
Right.
Like, that's really, and you have to have them in 6 separate months. but that just means you have to be around wrestling for half the period. So like,
Right.
again, it's a low standard.
But for certain indie guys, do you say you need to wrestle 6 matches, but you need to be in different multiple promotions? Because if you're only working one promotion and you work, six times in the year, right? Like,
I know there was somebody that was very noted, like that made a kind of a big stink in our circles that wrestles for AIW, maybe one or two other promotions, IWC and some other stuff, wasn't listed. And he had a pretty good
their name. You can tell me off air if not.
Wes Barkley.
Okay, yeah, we looked at West, but yeah, it was just a really competitive list.
Right. I mean, so I didn't feel bad about it because I'm just like, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I know that like Mikey, I think he even got bumped back from what he was last year, and he had some great stuff this year. It's just how competitive this list is. Like he slid backwards, even though he achieved more than he did last year. It's just how it is.
And I think that's important because you have there are a lot of wrestlers who did not rank last year who ranked, whether it was because they ascended through the independents, because they did more international work, because they held more championships. You had some people who weren't active enough, and then boom, this year they're active all of a sudden. Plus, there's new wrestlers just who are debuting every year. So you're going to have new stars that are born every year out of the people who did not make the list the previous year. So there's always room to debate that other people could have been on the list. I do think when we're considering all this, we don't have a hard and fast rule about how many wrestlers per promotion or something. But we say we look at AIW, we sit like, okay, who held championships throughout the year? How long did they hold them for? If they held a championship there, and we look at AIW as a significant promotion, but you're not guaranteed a spot on the list just by doing well there. Now, I mean, it will help you. It will help you for sure. And I mean, that's not specific to AIW. There's a lot of places like that. Like I know there were a few people that were in consideration for International Wrestling Cartel out of Pittsburgh, for example. Not all of them made it. And there were cases for them. Like, we looked like Duke Davis was kind of a tough cut, but we looked at who, okay, Bill Collier had the title for much longer than him and he beat him in a defense. Like we really do get in the weeds with this kind of stuff.
Okay.
This guy lost to this guy. This person won matches against tougher opponents. All that stuff we get, and do we always get it right? Of course not. Like it's human beings. It's not. We're not just like doing arithmetic. It's
right.
Subjective interpretations of this criteria that we talked about.
So I know it's like it's a combined effort with multiple people working on it.
Yep.
But I know like for your top 10 list, like yours might be different than what somebody else had. Were you willing to tell us your actual top 10 that you had? That's not what is in the book. Or is it pretty close?
I probably only had a top 5. I'm trying to recall. I may have had, I believe Cody was probably going to be number 1 in my book when we went in, but it wasn't. We did discuss it. I will say I had Zack Sabre Jr. in my top 5 personally. During the meeting, people said like, well, okay, honestly, there's a case for Goto to be above him because Goto had more title defenses. Business did better under him. Zach won the title again, but that first reign by some people who were actually like really following New Japan was considered not a disappointment, but it wasn't on the level of Goto's reign. So like, okay, yes. So Goto above Zack Sabre. And then it's not that Zack Sabre is much behind him. It's just that you have to consider all these other wrestlers who are neck and neck.
Right,
and then boom, but before I know it, he's down at number 13. And that's a consensus choice. And then people get really worked up because Joe Hendry was above him. As if we're making some kind of comment about Zack Sabre Jr.'s wrestling ability or charisma or something. That's not it. We're just saying that a guy who had millions of views on social media, who had his name chanted in arenas in a company that he didn't even work for the first time he showed up, who held a world title, look, he's your taster, he's not, but like that's a big wrestling star who checks a lot of these boxes that we just talked about. So it's like, do I personally think he's a better like worker than not? No, of course not. But like I don't think he would say that. But it's just, there's a lot of other stuff you have to consider. So I mean, I don't remember. I might have had Hangman at number 2 in mine, and he ended up a little lower at 4. So it's just we don't like go in and then let's assign point values to each number. Like we just kind of have it out. Like, okay, number 1, who has a strong case for somebody? Who has a strong case for somebody to not be number 1? And we really like kind of butt heads for a little while, and sometimes it gets pretty contentious. We get through the top 10, we get through the top 20. it starts to get a little easier from there because you have so it's not that it isn't time spent on each position and care put into it, but it's just like the golf is a little bit, it appears a little bit, you don't have like the tippy top of the like, okay, well, there are fewer people with world titles, so we have to decide like how much does this secondary title mean, how much does this independent title mean, much does this international title that we don't recognize as like an official world title mean. So it's just a lot of hemming and hawing over details. Honestly, it's exhausting. We put a ton. Contrary to popular belief, this is not rage bait. We put so many freaking hours into this every year, and we are trying our best to make it. That's not to say we don't have like somebody who's in a position who we like know it's a little bit bold or something like that. Like, trying to think of an example, but like. Luke Jacobs is great, but like if American fans who don't know him might be like, what's this guy doing in the 30s above like Randy Orton and above like all these huge stars, like we're saying that what he did this year was significant. So I'm not saying we don't have any like bold choices or things that we know might be just received a certain way, but we are not trying to piss people off. We're trying to make a list that's consistent with the way we do it every year.
Right. And I think a lot of people too, like they instantly get upset about it and they're like, well, I don't agree with this, but it's like, this is just your guys' opinion. This is your list. And
kind of like you said, it's not even any one of our opinions.
Right.
Like,
it's a combined list. To me, it's like, okay, I don't know this guy. I'm going to check him out because obviously he did something that's going to made you guys go, hey, he deserves, to be in this area. I think that's cooler because like, that's how you discover like stuff. Like we still try to discover, indie guys before they blow up. And I mean, there's been a handful here and there that we really like fell in love with, like Junie Underwood, and watching him come along this year has been really great. And so I feel like there's a lot of guys that that really like they get a lot of I think they might get new eyes on them from this list every year. Like there's new, why is this guy listed here? Let me go check out some of his stuff, see what he's about.
I hope they do. I mean, curiosity is the best response, but that was me growing up. I mean, then you get people who are like, this person doesn't matter because I've never heard of them. And that pisses me off.
So it's the worst.
So that's the question that I was going to ask of you. You get to like 375 and up, right? Number 3. How much of this group, when you guys have your committee, what happens in those upper numbers to get guys either on there or not? How does like there are guys on the back 400 that I've never heard of, and not to say that they're not valued on there, but who's bringing those cases forward for those guys as opposed to like somebody else that may have been on it the year before? Like how does that happen as you get to the upper levels where, look, I get it, there's a lot of indie wrestlers. How does it get to that point up there? What do you guys do at those back numbers?
I mean, it depends on the year. So I know when Dan Murphy was at the helm, he pretty much did the last 300 to 350 himself. Now he would bring them back to the group and he would say, is anybody missing? Anybody way too high? Anybody way too low? Dan watched more hours of wrestling than there were hours in the day. It was insane. So like we generally trusted his judgment on that, but we would give feedback like, well, did you look at so-and-so? And sometimes they would get worked in, sometimes like, oh, not quite this year, better luck next year kind of thing. When he left, that's kind of when I was starting as editor. So I sort of took on that role. And then I brought people in who we do more of the top 500 in the initial meeting and the follow-up meeting now. So we try to knock more of it out, but I'm one guy or anybody else is one person. You don't want that all to fall on one person, even a Dan Murphy. It's just too much pressure. So this year, I mean, there were a few of us working, but I know heavily it was myself and Jason McVeigh, and we were working on the bottom. I forget how far we got in the initial meeting, but it was hundreds of wrestlers. But essentially, we took names of people we knew. While you're doing your research, you come across names that, we didn't really give this person a look. And we haven't given this person a look maybe in previous years, but they're showing up a lot. So maybe let's see what we're missing with this wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go in and we'll look at the results and we'll look at people who are mentioned and different opponents and people who hold championships. And we have that. We have submissions. We open a form every year and we do look at those. and we consider those. And you definitely do not, if you're an independent wrestler watching this, you do not need to submit to be considered, but it helps. There are situations where not all your stuff there. There's a lot of our research is the three big sites that catalog matches. It's Cage Match, Internet Wrestling Database, and WrestlingData.com. So we look at like if we don't see immediately on there that someone has enough matches, sometimes we're like, did this person have enough matches? And then we go to look at the submission, like, oh, how many matches did they have? And then if they say they had more, then we have to kind of dig into that and verify that information somehow. So, those sites are very useful tools, but they're not the be all end all. And the submissions in past years were a huge part of it. So we want to make sure that people are encouraged to use that, especially if they're not someone who's on television every week. Probably most of their matches are listed on those sites, but a lot of other people know. So it's again a good thing to do to submit there. But I will say we had something like 800 or 850 wrestlers on the working list, and we had to cut out from there to 500. So we
could move them, right?
Like, this person doesn't qualify. This person is kind of borderline. Let's take them off. But there were people with a strong enough case where it was, again, like 800 wrestlers. And we were just like, okay, we got to make some tough choices now. So like, we've got this list and we're working through them and we're kind of vetting them. And like, this person only won like 3 singles matches, or this person didn't leave their area all that much. And you don't have to leave your area if your area is a really prominent one and you are just kicking ass there. Like if the promoter's lining up all the top wrestlers and bringing them to you and you're knocking them down, we're going to consider that. But if there's another wrestler who is kind of doing the same thing you are, and they're going other places and they're traveling overseas and they're winning matches there and they're competing in tournaments and all this other stuff, yeah, I mean, there's going to be an edge to them on that.
Is there a bias? Oh, sorry, JHawk. Real quick, let me just ask real quick. Is there a bias for no ring style or gimmicky styles, as opposed to wrestlers who are doing it, standard, on a card, in the ring type of thing? Do you guys look at it and go, all right, this guy only wrestles, let's say, no ring, death matches? Are we giving it the same consideration as like a guy who's wrestled, let's say in one location, but has done 15 matches and has wrestled 2 or 3 top guys? How do you do that?
So the no ring matches, it kind of depends on the promotion and like how much, like I remember a few years back that, there was a lot of buzz around No Peace Underground. A lot of wrestlers who did well there.
Yeah. Did
well on the list. But we're not saying it's not. I think it is a little harder for deathmatch wrestlers, and our committee is very split in terms of like how we feel about that. I enjoy them. Some of the most like extreme deathmatch stuff I'm not super into, but like I understand that there's an arc to it. Some other people on the committee are just like, oh no. But we still have to look at, okay, well, this person beat all these people who are being considered and who had championships here and here and here. And, there are wrestlers that, most wrestlers don't do purely deathmatch. But if someone is doing purely deathmatch, I think maybe the standard is a little higher just because the promotions are not they don't have as much visibility. And again, it depends. Like some of the promotions, there are some big ones. But I think we need to look at things like, it's again coming back to quality competition. If someone holds more than one deathmatch title, for example, so like
ICW, right? Like no ICW, no holds barred. They go all over the world, and they're strictly death matches with the chains. So that's why I ask, where like those, like you said,
there are definitely some ICW wrestlers in the mix. Danny DeManto did not get his 3 years in a row of number 420. He was very upset. So,
Danny.
But he now holds 2 international deathmatch championships. So depending when he retires, he's in pretty good shape for next year. If he retires before the period's up, that's it. He can't rank. But I don't know when his planned retirement date is, so we'll see. I actually told him, I said, hold on to those titles and don't retire before the end of next July, and you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought up the commission, though, because when I brought up earlier about how people think, oh, your people are paying to get on the list. No, but they are committing their information because they realize, as much wrestling as your panel watches, and I know Kristen, I've met Brian Coleman, who, by the way, I'll give him a free plug, Gorilla Monsoon book, out now at the time of the drop. Get it? But, I look at the names you got on that list, and as much wrestling you watch, you can't see everybody, you can't see everything. you need those commissions to fill out those people that maybe you've missed because you can't watch 80 hours of wrestling in a day. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Not everything is recorded or streaming either. I mean, like the most high level stuff that will get people ranked typically is, but it's not. It's not always easily available. There are different things, but this is part of why we have a committee of, I think there are 8 of us, because we all watch a little bit of different stuff, or we focus on this person watches more, like is really on top of every single WWE match, and this person watches more indies, this person watches more death match, this person's more tuned in with the West Coast, this person knows what's going on in Europe, that sort of stuff.
Now,
submissions are important to your point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of pivot just a little bit here. We're still going to talk wrestling, but I want to switch it up. Obviously, number 500 this year was Serial Man, which I think is fantastic. And I remember in 1995, there was an independent wrestler named Chicken Neck that got ranked in the 500. He literally dressed in a chicken costume, and he was billed at a weight of $2.79 a pound. What is the most obscure name you can ever think of, or the weirdest gimmick or whatever that's ever been in the 500 that you can recall?
Oh my gosh, it's funny because sometimes that spot brings people to greater prominence. Like Garbage Man became Duke the Dumpster Drosy.
Yeah. Actually, where number 500 became a big deal as number 1 when Duke Drosy ended up getting kind out of it.
Right. Yeah. So Nick Nemeth is a former number 500. Like, that's an obscure one, but Lulu Pencil's got to be up there because Lulu Pencil's run was very short. I forget what year that was. That might have been 2021. But she was a wrestler for Gato Move, Joshi promotion, and like the Choco Pro shows, and was just this fan favorite. She was a journalist turned wrestler. She carried like a giant novelty pencil with her. She wrestled in suspenders, but she had a diehard fan base, and she wrestled a lot of matches. And she was number 500 that year. And there was actually, I think Emi Sakura brought her over to visit like AEW tapings, and there were AEW wrestlers posing with her after this, and it was pretty cool. But she's not been wrestling for a few years. She kind of like had that career highlight, so to speak, and then sort of like quietly went back, I guess, to her shoot job, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
Josh, you're gonna have to ask Young Ed about that. I'm sure he knows exactly who that is.
Yeah, somebody actually made a mock-up. Somebody made a mock cover of her year too, of number 500.
We did, yeah. We didn't print any, but we
she came out with Emi Sakura, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that was her. Just get that, JGold.
Oh, I zoned out, and you know what, Kevin? Sometimes my brain doesn't work, so Jared, JHawk, and Butters are used to it when I zone out. I apologize. Yes, sorry, JHawk. Go ahead.
Yeah, but not even necessarily number 500. Like, if there's just a weird, wacky one that was elsewhere in the list. Chicken Neck wasn't number 500. It was like 460 or something that year. I can't remember exactly what number.
Oh, right. Oh gosh, that's really put me on the spot. There's been
Was Stamp Lickage on the 500 at any point? Or
that's a good question. I'm not sure. I have a pretty good memory, but it's not everybody who's ever ranked.
I gotta look that up, honestly, JGold, but I'm curious.
Yeah, Stamp Lickage or Little Asshole, as Kevin Owens said was his favorite worst name ever.
I feel like there needs to be like an extra thing in the PWI 500 where it's like the top like 20 worst wrestling names.
Holy shit! Kevin made it twice.
There you go. What was the peak number?
He was peak number 422 in 2003, and then the year in 2002 he was 461.
Wow, he was making moves. All right.
So the worst. So actually, it's interesting to say the worst names. So we in the ratings page we have an email address listed in there for people to submit in the month, like the individual issues, not just the 500, but like their own custom top 10s. So like if someone wanted to submit, like we had top 10 in this issue, wrestling fashion crimes. Like it was like Zubaz pants, Giant Gonzalez bodysuit, McFoley leisure wear. And it was just this kind of. Like, so you could, if you want
I feel like we should do this.
I love it. Zubaz pants are awesome, by the way. I have 2 pairs. So
I had them when I was younger. I got to pick some more up.
Yeah, that's the reason that we had a top 10 referee list. That number 1 was Nick Shin, committed by Nick Shin.
Nick Shin made the list. Yeah.
I love Nick. He's a good referee. He's a good dude. But dude, don't rank the referee to put yourself number 1. I
used Nick on the one wrestling show I ever promoted, and he was great on it. But like he he has been bugging. Well, he kind of stopped after he did this, but he was bugging me to make a referees list. I'm like, that's a whole thing. That's if we
How?
rank it the way
No,
we rank the
that's
500, then like Rick Knox is not on the list because in kayfabe he messes up all the time, right? Like he's a bad referee, like, so, but he's like one of the most high profile referees. So how did that even work? So and anyway, and like I mean, like, oh, like he doesn't see anything the Young Bucks are doing. That's what I'm getting at. It's like how do you give him a good referee job when that's his whole gimmick? But like, so I said to Nick, I said, hey, do your own damn list because we're accepting them now. And he did it. And I'm like, you really want yourself at number one? You know, I'm going to put your name at the bottom for submitted by, right? And he's like, yeah, I don't give a shit.
Amazing.
There it was.
so like when you guys do the belt rankings in the books, how do those come about? Or is that something that like you keep the same ones all the time, or like how do you rank those? Like the where you have like the belt and then it has like the top 10 contenders or whatever for it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we have the promotional level rankings. We have the overalls, which are the heavyweight, the women's, and the tag team, and those are basically the mini versions of these annual lists we do. But we have the promotional level ones, and we have a committee that does those as well. We have generally specific people for focus on specific promotion, and that's their beat for the week. Chris and Ashley does. We actually do it now. It's 5 and 5. We do 5 men and 5 women.
Okay.
And that was because there was certainly a case to not every promotion. I mean, some promotions don't book as many women's matches, but it was a pretty flimsy case for leaving off women's rankings and just having the one overall. Like they're increasingly just like why is this all men? So we didn't really have room to do top 10s, and honestly, the top 5, that's usually where you see most of the movement anyway. So for us, that was good. But we have the individual committee members who do that. We do have in the back page of the rating section where people send in for the promotions, and like we'll rank on the independent level as well too if we don't get enough submissions that month. But a lot of times we'll just ask the promoter, hey, who's your current champion? Who are your top 5 contenders? So that's really when it's like the most authentic. I think this is okay to say. IWTV has like a hand in the top 5 contenders we have in there. They're kind of like, this is who we're looking at. And like, okay, cool, looks good. So for that belt, it really kind of depends on the specific promotion. Like some of them send it in, but a lot of them we're just putting them together as a committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Kevin, do you yourself at this point? I mean, I'm sure this takes up a large amount of your time as far as how you guys are coming together and writing this. But do you yourself get out and go to any shows? What are your go-to right now? Whether it doesn't have to be TV. Since we're indie wrestling guy, I'd rather ask you your indies opinion.
Yeah, we're talking about a lot of TV wrestling.
Yeah, well, and I love that because I do that on Tuesday nights on a different show. But what do you like right now as far as indie wrestling goes? What do you go to? What was the last show you've been to?
What's the most recent? I'm trying to. I go out and I take pictures for the magazine. That's a big part of it. Like I'll bring my camera and I do this at the major shows. Last indie show, it has been a minute. I've been doing a lot of like the TV ones. I saw a bunch out in Vegas. Like I saw New Texas Pro out there. I saw Spark Joshi. Saw I'm blanking. There were, again, a whole bunch. I wouldn't really call Progress an independent. They have the pretty substantial financial banking, but like I saw that. Yeah. And then I maybe like a Labor of Love show. They're a good local Philly promotion. That might be the most recent.
You're a Philly guy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just outside of Philly. So I'll be going to one of their shows in a few weeks. I'll go to like kind of whatever's at the Ridgefield Park at the Mecca.
That's where I am all the time. I will run into each other. I was just there yesterday for ETU.
So I did not get to that ETU, but I've been up there for a couple ETU shows for sure. I'm actually kind of surprised that Jay Bougie was not trying to get me harder to go to that show, because that seems like the kind of thing like he would have been politicking for me to be there. But
he's a funny dude. I enjoy when I get a chance to sit with him and the struggles and the guys. So you do that down there. What's your genre as far as like what? Because like if you ask me what wrestling do I like the best, well, I like in-ring indie wrestling. I love TV wrestling, but if I'm going to go to something, I love a really good homegrown indie show. What do you like? What's your style and genre of wrestling that you find yourself as like, this is what I love to watch?
So I watch a lot of independent wrestling. I know a few weeks ago I was watching three different indie streams at once on IWTV. It was Action Wrestling, Premier Wrestling Federation out of Carolina, and St. Louis Anarchy. So I was watching that, and there's a lot of wrestlers I have been friendly with over the course of the years, and I wanted to see their matches. And I co-host the Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast, Cheap Plug, with Kai McKenna. She had a match for PWF that night. A couple great wrestlers whose career I been keeping up with for a long time in that St. Louis Anarchy show. And Action Wrestling does, like, I got the shirt on, obviously. They do great work down there. And
we had Matt on the show here. Yeah, when we were talking heels, and we had Matt Griffin
He's
on the
a
show.
big supporter of us initially. We were on like the ring apron. We when we were IWTV guide, we helped them get their ring apron, and we were like sponsored on there and stuff. And
that was cool. Yeah.
So I enjoy those. I watch a lot of that. I watch, obviously I'm watching the big promotions and keeping up with those. I like a lot of international stuff. Watch a lot of CMLL. Watch a lot of Joshi, a lot of Stardom, TJPW, Sendai Girls, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, like, the indie stuff again is great. I go through kind of phases with it. I'll watch promotions that are again, like, I'll be watching some old stuff, or I'll be watching, like, I went through a big deathmatch phase like 2 years ago, like around whenever the run was with the Kirks each holding the ICW, the American Deathmatch title. Like, that was very much my stuff at that point. I was watching most of the shows live as they aired. So, yeah, I mean, it's a mix. It's kind of what I'm in the mood for. And then there's, again, a lot of stuff it's my job. So this is my full-time job. So I have to watch a lot of wrestling, and, certainly you can't see everything, but when it's the weekend, or like when there's not a major event to cover on, like those are kind of the things I would go to for, like, quote unquote, for my enjoyment. Like, yes, this is work, but also, like, these are my favorite things to watch.
All right,
real quick, JHawk, before I forget, I'm sorry. For the night shift tomorrow night, we always bust on this guy, and I am not a huge fan, but I need to know your opinion. Josh Briggs, is he going to be a champion one day or not?
Oh my gosh, that is a hard call. He had that run in Noah, which I think, like, the fact that they sent him versus a couple other people, that shows some confidence in him. But they did just have him lose the NXT match to Javon Evans, and Javon Evans, I mean, part of his thing is he's great, but he doesn't pick up the wins. So I don't know. Like a few years ago, if you told me, like, Josh Briggs, like, yeah, I thought they were gonna get, but there are various reasons why maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
wanted to pick your brain on that one to give my co-host Kyle some issues. Yeah. JHawk, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. You've talked about all the wrestling you watch, and it's so much wrestling that even I'm going, dude, come on. You've got to be something besides wrestling you're in. Got to be something besides wrestling you're into.
Every show from every promotion.
I understand
besides wrestling, so I watch way too many movies. I have a Letterboxd account, and I keep track of them. I've watched 101 movies this year.
Nice.
So a lot of horror stuff, but I'll watch anything. I watch, like, old French films. I watch love a good R-rated comedy. I'm a sucker for a rom-com as well. I enjoy good rom-com. So I'm a man of many interests.
We're going into October, so horror season. This is dropping on October 2nd. So what about your top 3 horror movies for this year?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God, I might need to consult the Letterboxd. I'm trying to think. Weapons has probably got to be my favorite.
Yep.
Just, like, completely batshit. Just I go, if you haven't seen that movie, go in as cold as you can and just be shocked. Let me see. I think Strange Darling was last year, I think, so that doesn't count. I don't know if Sinners is number 2, but I think it's top 3 or 4. Let me see. Oh my gosh, now I'm really, like, blanking on this. I saw this movie called Strange Harvest. It was a lot of fun. It's kind of like a mockumentary.
Yeah, that's out on.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I need to watch Bring Her Back again, because I think, like, that just completely floored me when I saw it. But it, like, some of it was like, what? Like, because some of the stuff is not fully tied together in the end, and you're left to wonder some things without giving anything away about the movie. I have a feeling that's one I'm going to like a lot more when I go to rewatch it. I will say least favorite horror movie of the year was The Home with Pete Davidson. Terrible.
I knew it. I knew it was going to be bad.
Oh, it's so bad. I saw that. That was one of the surprise, like the AMC Scream Unseen things that I talked about on Twitter. And I'm like, and what's funny is everyone kind of thought, oh, Together. That was another. I don't know if it's top three, but that was a fun one. But everyone kind of thought it was going to be the movie Together with Alison Brie and Dave Franco. And then it ended up being The Home with Pete Davidson. I'm like, okay, we're gonna give us a chance. And like, oh my God, what the hell is like? It's just not. It's total B movie, but it has no idea it's a B movie. So it's.
I really liked Companion, but I feel like it got spoiled.
That was kind of fun. Yeah,
the trailer spoiled once you knew the twist.
Yeah,
it kind of changed the whole movie. I feel like if you didn't know that twist, I think it was a lot more fun going in.
Yeah,
but yeah, so far Weapons has been my number one.
Okay,
yeah, Weapons was fantastic. Yeah. And I just finished Alien Earth, and Butters and I were talking about that, and I think that's right up there with the horror for the year. It's great. Yeah. On Hulu. But
I'm a huge Alien fan, so like that was perfect for me. And I mean, they basically gave us a free Alien movie in the middle of the season, so it was just good stuff.
Yeah.
So Kevin, now that you're done with the list, right? So as we start to wrap this up today, now that you're done with the list, what do you do? What's next? What are you going to do? Oh, it's still good. What's like, so where I know you said you're going to take a little bit of time off from the internet and all this stuff. What do you want? What's next for you as far as your next assignment, so to speak?
Well, yeah, it's the women's 250. So we've already started on this. We had our first meeting. We are still working on it. We're gonna have another meeting. We're gonna keep plugging away at it. And then there's a little bit. We do the tag team list the following issue, but that one is fun because it has some additional features in it. So we'll get to have some of the. That's really my favorite stuff is just doing regular feature stories about wrestlers and shows and different profiles and things like that. And I think that's the stuff that, the list issues sell the best, but that's the stuff I think that our subscribers are really there for is the feature stories. So, and then, before you know it, it'll be, in fact, the very next issue with the women's 250 and it is going to have the year-end awards ballot. So I've got to work on getting that assembled too. It's interesting with that because you're not bound by, like, we put a short list and people are like, why isn't this person on there? It's like, okay, vote for them. Like you voting for that person who's not listed counts exactly as much as voting for someone who's on the list. Sure. I go through and I record these myself. It's like, it's just, which is a whole other thing. That's what I spent a lot of my time near the end of the year doing. Is recording those ballots. It's easier when people submit them by email, but yeah.
Let's kind of bust that myth right now too. And the fan voting for the year-end award, 100% legit.
100% legit.
And
I don't know if that's always
been
the case. I can't say for sure. I do know the numbers that were in the magazine years ago where it says like 50,000. No, come on. Like it's, I know like there are fewer copies of the magazine circulating nowadays, but that was probably, I don't even know if there were that many copies of the magazine circulating if you counted up that many votes, like even during the peak. So those numbers were bogus. But as far as whether they're actually being counted, I don't know. I can tell you, again, it's completely legit now. And I actually stress out because we send these out to get wrestlers pictures with the plaques and all this stuff. And I heard people from the promotions that were like, do you have this finalized yet? Like, no, like we still have a few more days and it's too close to call. So I stress them out and I stress myself out. But yeah, it's completely legitimate.
Another Mythbuster. I mean, I know back in the day we had like Matt Brock, who was not a real person. There's no fake people on the PWI staff currently, correct?
Matt Brock occasionally pops up in the magazine still. So
okay. That guy from Matt Brock, though, everybody's legit.
Liz Hunter occasionally pops up.
I actually didn't realize Liz Hunter was not a real one.
Matt Griffin did not realize that Liz Hunter was not a real one either.
Yeah, I thought she was one of the real ones.
Nope.
The one I thought was fake for the longest time was Eddie Owner, and it turns out he not only good, but they don't bet people are in touch with him. Like, right.
He's a very he seems like a character that someone would invent, but no, he's real.
Well, All right. Anybody else? Anybody else for Kevin while while we got him?
I'm good.
Well, all right, Kevin, we appreciate immensely you coming on and fielding everything we asked of you, and thank
Yeah, it
you
was a
for
lot of
that.
fun. Sorry there was so much talk of TV wrestling on.
No, it's
I'd
fine
love to
with
do
it.
something
Listen,
another time where it's more
this is
independent focused.
this is what it is, man. We got to cover, the list is what it is. It can't be, we have to
Yeah.
discuss
And
everybody
now
in
we
it.
got to
So
get to work on that top 10 worst wrestling names list and
Please
make sure
send
we
it
get that
over.
submitted.
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
We have to go back into the archives and see what everybody gave us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to throw this out there right now. If you want to come on around the time that year-end issue comes out,
Sure.
we'd be happy to have you on and discuss that, especially if some indie guys show up on that. So
Yeah, if nothing else, we'll have the Indie Wrestler of the Year, which is always an unsigned wrestler. It has to be by definition.
Nice.
And then indie wrestlers are technically in contention for anything. So like if all of you are looking at the ballot and you're like, like there's a really good case for this wrestler in this category, this wrestler, like an example, like I'm pretty sure KJ Orso versus Sam Stackhouse is going to be on the short list for feud of the year. Now, will it get as many votes as a lot of the TV feuds? I don't know. But like if you were to say, mobilize your listeners and say, hey, like make sure to submit some ballots for some independent matches, then again, they count as much as anything else. So the power is in your hands.
we got to get that rush going to get Violent and Forever the Tag Team of the Year award this year.
That's right. We got to
There
get
you go. Right. See,
And in all honesty, with tag team wrestling being what it's been on TV wrestling this year, they got a shot if enough people watch them. So
I think it should be Derek Dillinger and
Jesus.
Man Bear Pig
No.
Kid Tyson Riggs, the new
No.
AIW tag
Stop
champs.
it. Stop
No.
it.
Those should be the tag team of the year right there.
they're not going to
But
have enough tag matches to fucking qualify for the list. Don't
just
even
ignore
do that
me,
shit.
Kevin. Just ignore me. I do think Derek should be on the Pro Wrestling 500. He was not on it this year, so
he was not, and I like Derek. And he messages me about the list to kind of like, hey, when's the form open? Like, because we know who he is, but he's like,
Yeah.
I want to get my submission in there to really highlight everything I did. It was just like I said, it was a really competitive list. This
production
year, so.
the production is a quality tag team. So when that list
Yes.
comes out, I will submit for that as well.
So
There you
in the future, when somebody like submits the information, does the wrestler have to submit their own information, or can somebody submit on behalf of a wrestler?
We prefer if someone is not the wrestler themselves that a promoter does it, just because we
Okay.
don't. If we encourage fan submission, that's going to get real messy. That's
Right,
gonna
right.
be- and we don't
Sure.
know how accurate the information is. Whereas
Okay.
a promoter or a wrestler filling out the form, we can be reasonably sure that it's
Okay.
correct. And again, we still go and verify it, but it's just we don't want to start with completely bogus.
Good to know,
information.
because I was going to do Mikey's this year and I wasn't sure if I was technically allowed to, and I was pushing him to make sure that he gets sent in. So
There you go.
I'll next year, or with whoever I have next year, I'll make sure that I send those in. So thank you so much.
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah, of
one
course.
more quick question before we let you go, because it came up on some of the online Discord here. The women that made the list, what exactly does a woman have to do to make this particular list? Because they've got the 250 already, and there are a lot of people going, "How did this woman make it and not Becky Lynch?" That kind of example.
So it's like I said, it's essentially a heavyweight list. I mean, there are junior heavyweights on there and such, but we look at it as like if someone is competing outside of women's divisions and promotions. So intergender matches, but also like there are some wrestlers who don't really fit on either list. There are non-binary wrestlers. There's Maxie Impaler, Noah Vale are two examples that come to mind. And it's like, what are we gonna like arbitrarily pick a list for them to be on? Like, so what we do is people are allowed to rank on the list based on what they compete in. So someone is holding championships that have traditionally been held by men, or who like people of all genders are competing for, then they're considered eligible for this list. So that's why you see like a lot of independent wrestlers, whereas like a Becky Lynch, she is only competing in women's divisions.
Right.
If Becky Lynch, I mean, maybe use it as an example. Okay, so it's probably not going to happen, but Natalia is doing the indie stuff. If Natalia started beating a bunch of guys at Bloodsport, or if Natalia challenged for the GCW world title, then like, oh, okay, well, we got to kind of look at her then, because she's in contention for these same things that everyone else is. Now, whether she makes it, it's going to depend on who she beat, how many times she won. It comes back to all the other stuff.
Like a Billy
Right on.
Starks, right? Because Billy, I was last night even at ETU.
Yes.
Billy wrestled Marcus Mathers, so Billy's always wrestled men. Most
And Billy
of her,
did a lot less this year, but
Right.
so that's why the lower ranking. And I think Mouse shamed her for it on Twitter.
Yes, he sure did. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, so she's a perfect example of that. She's someone who's still on TV, but she's still in GCW and ETU and other. Don't mind me.
No, but
So
I
much
do like
talking.
their legit criteria for it. Like I remember
Yeah.
1995, especially Lauren Taylor had the one match with Bam Bam Bigelow. Well, he won the match. We got to be on the list. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
no.
but he had one match.
Yeah, that gets messy.
Or Miss Technic being the first woman in. She wrestled. At least she was wrestling men. That was the theory behind it. No.
It was, and that's how it is now as well. And we had a couple others after her. China was on the list the one year. Mad Maxine. There was I'm drawing a blank. Sarah Del Rey when she was
there you go. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, thank you again. We're going to do plugs now. So why don't you do whatever you want to plug, or the magazine,
Sure.
whatever you want to get out and let everybody know.
All right, I'll try not to drop my phone again this time. We're at official PWI on Twitter and Instagram and some other places. PWI-online.com. You can grab the digital edition of the magazine, or you can pre-order the print edition. It hits newsstands October 14th. And I see, if you're already subscribed to the print magazine, I see people are starting to get their copies of it now. So it's kind of on its way out already. But check it out and check us out. I mean, it's if you even if you just like these issues, the list ones near the end of the year, it's really a pretty good deal and makes a lot of sense. Especially these are slightly higher cover price because there are more pages in these issues. If you subscribe for the year, you get all of it, and a pretty solid savings of something like 46% off the cover price. Don't quote me on that, but it's almost half off the cover price. So PWI-online.com.
Excellent. JHawk.
Follow me on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RevJHawk, Instagram at JHawk1539. I will most likely be at the Neo Pro show on Saturday, but we'll push that a little bit heavier when it's time for Hit Plug. But I'll most likely be there hanging out at a minimum. So come check that out.
Yeah, Neo Pro Wrestling at the Diamond Royale, Canton, Ohio. I believe bell times are like 8:00. It's a no rule show. They always put on really fun shows there. Mikey Montgomery, Trey Lamar wrestling, and we got some other stuff planned. So check that out. Charlie_Butters on Twitter and Instagram. That's all I got.
All right. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at JGold12. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to us. The Twitter handle, IWGuide1, YouTube.com. IW Guide, please join us. We're looking to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. That is really growing. And Patreon.com/IWGuide.
Yeah, we hit 60 today.
Nice. Oh, we're growing. And we are also don't forget about the merch store over at BrainbusterTees.com. Our friend Will over at Gorilla Press Apparel. We are part of the Main Event Wrestling Network, Wrestling Junkies, On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, Tino's Time, Blog World Order, and my show Tuesday nights at 10:15, NXT Night Shift. And Kevin, I think you were on the Wrestling Junkies last year. As a matter of fact, they were telling us. So that's Mr. Cincinnati. In case you all want to know, he is one of the hosts and podcast dad. At Odds with Wrestling, the card is going to change. The Super Fantastic Podcast and Marks with Mikes. Check out our other friends, Monsters in the Toy Box, Toy Hio, Rubber City Toys, Neo Pro Wrestling, OKCR Creations, Stash Pages, and Pally's Beef Jerky by our very own friend Kaplan. That's all I got.
Life short, watch more pro wrestling.